But when you are given a potent combat poison in the alluring form of pure pleasure, what precise dosage is it truly important to ascertain and carefully observe? So, what are you supposed to know that you can't have more than 2 pieces of chewing gum a day? Do you remember the sensation that chewing gum caused among the poor? The Soviet population? Poor people, they had never even seen it, never even heard of it. And that first piece of chewing gum, it was something, unattainable. So desirable. What is chewing gum, anyway? Back then, no one told us anything about it, friends. Now, in the age of the internet, we can find out something about it. So, chewing gum, it's sugar-free, right? It says sugar-free, free from sugar. We put it in our mouth, right? And it's sweet. That's because of sweeteners. Sweeteners, well, in numbers it's labeled as E934. I think that's it. It's represented by a number, the sweetener. Among the military, it's considered a weapon of war. It's used for lobotomizing people. A lobotomy is when they hammer your forehead with a little mallet. Knock, 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 to crack it open, to get to your brain in its natural state. Not just in an abstract way, but to actually affect it. And then, to get in there, poke around, turn off some nerve here, turn off something there. And they turn a person into an idiot, yes. Not even a degenerate, just a plain, simple idiot. That's usually how it ends, all these interventions in the human body. Aspartic acid, it's also kind of, on a psychological and biological level, it causes bouts of excitement and aggression. There can also be problems with the gastrointestinal tract, insomnia. You keep chewing and have no idea why. It doesn't even cross your mind. The thought that it's because you're chewing that very same gum day and night never even occurs to you. So it suppresses melatonin, it can cause skin rashes, and in men it can affect hormones. Important. As they say, you should follow the dosage. But when you're given a combat poison in the form of pleasure, what dosage are you supposed to follow? So what are you supposed to know that you can't have more than 2 pieces of gum a day? And what about kids? How do you tell them? Well, this is exactly where, my friends, that very weapon exists. The weapon used to destroy a person. A person is destroyed by being convinced that, yes, this is a combat weapon, but if you stick to the dosage, you won't be seriously harmed. In other words, you'll be affected no matter what, but you just won't be affected as badly. So, when you chew a lot, or even just chew this gum, your nervous system gets disrupted, your excitability, irritability, and anxiety increase, and most importantly, your concentration worsens. Your hormonal balance suffers. A potential increase in testosterone and estrogen can cause acne, well, pimples, yes, and gynecomastia. Decreased libido in men. It can happen to men, but not to women. Actually, it happens to women as well. It is not recommended for boys during puberty. And when people in Russia chewed it, or rather in the USSR, let's put it that way, who was chewing this gum? Boys, right during puberty. Isn't that so? After that, they don't really need it anymore. Look, it affects sleep because it suppresses melatonin. That's why it's better not to use chewing gum in the evening, or really not at all. It disrupts metabolism. It causes digestive problems. Headaches can also result from this. What else do we have? Weakened immunity. But who would have told us about this back when? Chewing gum was introduced in the USSR, and it was of the lowest quality from the very beginning. Later, there were different kinds. I was never a fan, never knowing this information. I just was never a fan. It reminded me of a cow or a horse that's always chewing. Well, yes, it was advertised. I remember in New York I was always watching those ads. You wake up in the morning and watch those commercials. Or you have breakfast before rushing off to work. You watch those commercials. What did they show there? Well, like, you have to rinse your mouth with some kind of toxic chemical liquid as soon as you wake up. And then, right after eating, you need to chew gum to clean your teeth from food. You know what I mean? I just never really liked that. Well, chewing gum can also cause allergies, just so you know. I'm telling you this because, you see, it's important to know. The main side effects are related to when, for example, children chew a lot of gum. When people start telling you that it's aspartic acid and that it can help you, well, maybe it does help in some way, I just don't know how. Maybe it affects reproductive functions, as they say. Supposedly it supports brain function, maybe. But do you believe that? If the military tells us that this is a weapon, and then we're told that it affects brain function, I believe it. But it affects it in a negative way, suppressing brain activity rather than bringing it to a normal state. So, when we're told, when it comes to aspartic acid, of course, we might think that, in principle, it could be useful. For example, in sports, right? In sports, it increases testosterone production and affects the functioning of the nervous system. And it is a proteinogenic amino acid. Proteinogenic, you see, if you keep consuming, chewing it, it will affect your genes. And especially, you see, when it comes to children and teenagers, it really has a strong effect on their genes. And what are genes? They are everything. They are the whole body, the health of the organism. The fact that somewhere, yes, it sometimes helps strengthen the immune system. But we don't really know. Maybe it's wonderful. But as the military say, it's a combat weapon. And it's used in all sorts of operations like galbotomy, which can lead to split personality. And for example, when aspartic acid is used during operations, the left and right hemispheres no longer connect. They simply can't connect anymore. So it's like the right side thinks separately and the left side separately. That's what it turns a person into. And do you remember when Moscow in the 1990s was filled with, and in general, the entire Soviet Union was filled with people who were losing their minds. They would appear on the streets and remember nothing. Not their names, not where they came from. This is all a kind of combat weapon, my friends. All of this was done by people, private individuals, who simply bought things from military laboratories. And they amused themselves at your expense, at the expense of the population. I am Tanya Karatsuba Seburkan, December 26, 2025. Happy upcoming New Year,